Did you ever read the 1966 book, In God We Trust, All Others Pay Cash? Or perhaps you are more familiar with its follow-up, 1971's Wanda Hickey's Night of Golden Memories and Other Disasters. Well, if you have read either of those, you may be familiar with the fictional, or not so fictional, exploits of famed radio personality Gene Shepard. Shepard began telling these stories on his famed radio show before publishing them in the pages of Playboy. Because apparently some people read the articles. He was encouraged to take his humorous childhood stories and form them into a book. And he did just that. The book was a hit and would spawn a film that featured a ragtag team of up-and-comers. Some talented fresh faces. So as we prepare to partake in our annual tradition of watching this film, A Christmas Story, for 24 hours straight on TBS, beginning at 8 p.m. on Christmas Eve. Something that's been done since 1997. We must ask that age-old question. What the fudge happened to the cast and some of the crew of A Christmas Story?
Only I didn't say fudge. I said the word. The big one.
But to truly understand what the fudge happened to the cast of A Christmas Story, we must begin at the beginning, and the beginning began when they were all born on their birthdays. But yeah, the beginning of the story did not begin on the big screen, but the small one, back when televisions were small, as Gene Shepard had originally adapted his stories into a PBS TV movie called Phantom of the Open Hearth in 1976, and its sequel, 1982's The Great American 4th of July and Other Disasters, which featured a young Matt Dillon in the Ralphie role. The success of those movies would sell MGM on producing a big screen version, which would be released on November 18th, 1983, and be titled A Christmas Story. Warner Brothers and their sister Dot would get the rights when Ted Turner purchased all of MGM's pre-1986 film library. And yeah, even though now we look at this film as one of the most beloved Christmas classics ever to be made, that was not true when it was released. The film only opened at about 2 million and was out of most theaters by Christmas, having only amassed $19.2 million total.
Ho, ho, ho.
Gene Shepard, the film's writer and narrator, would also have a cameo in the movie as the man in line at the department store waiting for Santa Claus. Look, there he is. Though he was already a famed radio personality at the time, A Christmas Story catapulted him into legendary status, where he would sell out college campuses with his hilarious live shows. Shepard would return to the world of Ralphie for the 1985 PBS special, The Star-Crossed Romance of Josephine Kosnowski, and the 1988 Disney Channel film, Ollie Hopnoodle's Haven of Bliss, featuring a young Jerry O'Connell as Ralphie. It wasn't long after these films that Shepard realized how much money he was making off the reruns of A Christmas Story, and he decided to stop doing the made-for-TV gigs. Mr. Shepard would pass away in 1999 at the age of 78, and in 2005 would be inducted into the National Radio Hall of Fame. By the time A Christmas Story came around, director Bob Clark had already made a name for himself with 1974's Black Christmas and 1981's Porky's, and its sequel, Porky's 2, the next day. You heard that right. The man responsible for all of those Porky shenanigans and Santa Claus going on a murder spree is also the guy who brought us the wholesome story of a kid at Christmas time. Bob Clark would go on to direct Rhinestone, starring Sylvester Stallone and Dolly Parton, and the film Loose Cannons, starring Gene Hackman and Dan Aykroyd. before returning to the world of Ralphie with the 1994 sequel My Summer Story, or as it was originally titled, It Runs in the Family, this time with a young Kieran Culkin as Ralphie. Sadly, Bob Clark and his 22-year-old son were killed on April 4th, 2007, when they were involved in a head-on collision with a drunk driver. But his legacy will forever live on, every year when we all strap in to watch our favorite holiday classics, like A Christmas Story and Black Christmas. Ian Petrella, aka Ralphie's pig-snorting brother, Randy, has been acting since he was just 3 years old in various commercials and TV shows. After A Christmas Story, he would take up improv acting, even becoming, at the age of 17, the youngest person to ever audition and be accepted into classes at the famed Groundlings Improv Studio in Los Angeles. While performing his improv around town, he would take a gig as a production assistant on a new puppet show, which ignited his passion in the field. So, Ian would take up the art of puppetry and go on to work on such shows as Ninja Turtles, Power Rangers, and he even worked with the legendary Jim Henson. He would move to San Francisco and perform his puppetry while also learning the art of animation. But it would be a call to invite him to a 20th anniversary reunion of A Christmas Story that would rekindle his passion. This would lead him to start appearing at conventions, where he seems to really love interacting with his fans. And of course, in the year 2022, he would reprise his role as Randy in that long-anticipated sequel, A Christmas Story Christmas, now on HBO Max. Zack Ward would make his acting debut as Ralphie's arch-nemesis, Scut Farkus, and he would go on to have one of the more packed resumes of the cast. You may recognize this guy from such films as Ed in 1996, Wild America in 1997, Almost Famous in the year 2000, Freddy vs. Jason in 2003, Resident Evil Apocalypse in 2004, Transformers in 2007, and the Uwe Boll classic Postal in 2007, Survive the Game in 2021, and he would appear on such TV shows as Party of Five, NYPD Blue, Nash Bridges, Deadwood, and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I believe at one time he campaigned to play that red-headed Green Lantern character in like a movie or a TV show, but I don't think anything ever came of that. I think he just really wanted to play this character and was constantly posting on his Facebook about it. Cast me, shouldn't I be in this? Yeah, I should. That's what he said. But his biggest role after A Christmas Story came in the year 2000, when he was cast as the half-brother to stand-up comedian Christopher Titus in the series Titus, that ran on Fox from 2000 to 2002. And in 2011, Ward would sue Warner Brothers over merchandising rights after the company announced a Scut Farkus action figure without his permission. But his initial contract contained no merchandising rights, and that particular action figure was using a generic face and not a face meant to resemble Zack's. The following year, Ward would sue them again when it was announced that his face was being used on other merchandised stuff. But yeah, all of his lawsuits with Warner Brothers, they quickly settled with the actor. And that's a good thing because Zack Ward reprises his role as Farkus in the 2022 sequel, A Christmas Story Christmas, now available on HBO Max. And he says that still to this day, fans like to make fun of him for getting his butt kicked by Ralphie.
I have since heard of people under extreme duress speaking in strange tongues.
R.D. Robb would make his acting debut in A Christmas Story as the triple dog daring Schwartz, who supposedly teaches Ralphie a not-so-nice word. He too would go on to have a pretty successful career, appearing in such films as The Brady Bunch movie and Matilda, as well as TV shows such as ER, Unhappily Ever After, Touched by an Angel, and The Goldbergs. But he realized his passion was behind the scenes, and he would transition into producing, starting with the film The Bogus Witch Project, as well as producing a film called Triple Dog. But of course,
I triple dog dare ya!
he also produced the 2012 special Live with John Legend, and the popular freeform series Siren from 2018 to 2020. But his biggest claim to fame post A Christmas Story is his directing effort on the film Don's Plum, featuring a young Leonardo DiCaprio and Tobey Maguire. And of course, this film was very controversial. Leo and Maguire would oppose the release of the film, Don's Plum, saying that it was originally pitched to them as a short film, but Rob would extend it to a feature-length film. Tobey Maguire says that he did not like his performance in the film, and that there was too much improv that revealed way too many personal things about Tobey. And after several legal battles, this film appears to be available in full on YouTube, if you've ever heard of YouTube. But yeah, R.D. Rob, like the others, would reprise his role as Schwartz in the 2022 sequel, A Christmas Story Christmas. That's on HBO Max! Did you guys know that? Now available! Okay, so this is when our story will take a bit of a scandalous turn. Mr. Scott Schwartz had already appeared in the great Richard Pryor film The Toy in 1982, before he was cast as Ralphie's frozen pole-lickin' friend Flick in A Christmas Story. Scott Schwartz would go on to appear on guest spots on TV shows such as 21 Jump Street and Rags to Riches. And then this man who played an innocent child in a Christmas movie would make a career shift. He would still be involved in film and video productions. They were just different kinds of films this time. He would appear in a franchise called New Wave Hookers, where he would play Dr. Von Hazachub. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, Scott Schwartz, the kid from A Christmas Story who licked the frozen pole, would enter into the adult film world. First, it would be behind-the-scenes roles before transitioning to appearing on camera. But don't worry, they were all non-sexual roles, apparently. Or that may disappoint you, I don't know. And apparently he was pretty good at this because he would actually win an AVN award, an adult industry Oscar thing, in 1997 for Best Non-Sexual Performance. He would then transition into being an agent for adult performers before leaving the industry completely in the year 2000 to try to get back to more traditional acting roles. Mr. Schwartz said that child actors tend to fizzle out by the time they're 18 in the industry, and he says because of that, he panicked and turned to the adult film industry to simply pay the rent. Sure you did.
Yeah, statue.
Ralphie?
Scott Schwartz would then work as the president of A Minor Consideration, which is a child actors advocacy organization. And of course, this former non-sexual adult industry actor would return to the world of A Christmas Story as Flick in that 2022 sequel, A Christmas Story Christmas. HBO Plus, it is on that. You can watch it on that. Yano Anaya would play Grover Dill. And if you did not recognize him from his screen debut here in A Christmas Story, you may know him as that kid who really wanted his $2 in the cult classic film Better Off Dead. Or you may know him because he appeared in that classic music video by Van Halen, Hot for Teacher, in 1984. However, after appearing in 1988's The Blue Iguana, Yano would take an extended break from acting, but actually recently he would emerge in a video that has gone viral on TMZ and stuff, when he was taking photos with fans at the iconic Christmas Story house in Cleveland. The owner of this house, who is currently trying to sell it, came out in a huff, screaming at Anaya to get off his property and never return.
Alright, who's next?
Yano Anaya and the home's owner would come face to face with each other as the owner berates him, calling him a scammer, a loser, and a piece of shite. It is unclear what led to the outburst, although Yano said that he is trying to purchase the house with other members of the cast, because this house has become a hot tourist destination, and Yano wants to convert it into a museum for the film, with tours given throughout the year, Christmas, all year round. He believes that this is a wonderful way to keep the film alive, but also a wonderful way to keep the film alive is getting HBO Max and watching A Christmas Story Christmas that he's into. And now we get to the big kahuna, the person for which we all learned to say the F word without actually saying it. Peter fudging Billingsley. Mr. Peter Billingsley was cast as Ralphie after a casting call of over 8,000 children were seen, including such people as Sean Astin and Will Wheaton. But director Bob Clark said that as soon as Peter Billingsley walked in, the role was his. After A Christmas Story, Billingsley would continue to act in small roles on shows such as Highway to Heaven, Punky Brewster, and The Wonder Years. But it would be the 1990 CBS school break special TV movie, The Fourth Man, that would actually change his life and career forever, because that is where he met a young Vince Vaughn, and the two became fast friends. A few years later, young Vince Vaughn would work on the film Rudy with a young Jon Favreau, and the three of them all became good friends. BFFs for Evs. And that friendship would see Billingsley appear in another Christmas classic when his BFF Jon Favreau directed Elf. Then Peter would step behind the camera and take on producing, starting with the Jon Favreau film Zathura, Jumanji in Space, and he produced the documentary TV series Dinner for Five, for which Peter Billingsley would be nominated for an Emmy. He would continue producing films with Vince Vaughn under their Wild West film production company, with movies like The Breakup and Four Christmases, another Christmas movie which Billingsley would appear in. He also would produce projects such as the hilarious Netflix Bill Burr animation, F is for Family, and the ESPN 30 for 30 documentary, The 85 Bears, in 2016. He would also be involved with yet another Christmas movie by producing the Christmas movie Christmas with the Campbells. Oh yeah, and of course he was the executive producer and supporting actor in the film that launched a multi-billion-dollar empire, Iron Man. That's right, Ralphie produced Iron Man. And you would see him again in Spider-Man Far From Home. Billingsley was the catalyst for getting the gang back together, as not only did he reprise his role as Ralphie, but he also produced the gosh darn movie too, and he came up with the story, saying that his motivation was that he wanted to pay homage to Darren McGavin, who played his father in the original. Now Ralphie's the old man.
Not a finger!
Speaking of Darren McGavin, most of us know him as the leg lamp loving father in A Christmas Story, but he was already a Broadway and film legend before landing that iconic role. He would go on to have a long, amazing career, including being nominated for an Emmy for his guest starring role on Murphy Brown. And for many of us, he would take on yet another iconic role in 1995, when he played the rich father who wants to leave his company to his son, as long as his stupid son can pass all 12 grades in a matter of months, in the Adam Sandler classic, Billy Madison. That's right, he's the dad in that one too. But sadly, we lost Darren McGavin in the year 2006. But of course, his memory and his spirit still live on because we haven't stopped watching his movies. And the other parent in the film, Ralphie's mom, played by Melinda Dillon, was also already a Broadway legend, and a 2-time Oscar nominee by the time she took on this role of the mother in A Christmas Story. Bob Clark says that he cast Melinda Dillon entirely based on her performance in the classic Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And yeah, she's great in that. After A Christmas Story, she would continue acting, appearing in films such as Harry and the Hendersons, playing yet again another loving, worried mother. She was in the 1990 Captain America movie, and The Prince of Tides. In 1995, she was in that movie that has the title that is To Wu Fong, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar. Also in that same year of 1995, she was in a movie called How to Make an American Quilt. And in 1999, she joined the ensemble cast of Paul Thomas Anderson's Magnolia. Then in 2007, there was the Adam Sandler 9/11 drama Reign Over Me, which would end up being Melinda Dillon's final role, as she decided to retire from acting at that time. Right now, she enjoys living a quiet life away from the glitz and the glamour of the Holly weird stuff. So for the sequel, A Christmas Story Christmas, now on HBO Max, she would hand over her role of Miss Parker to actress Julie Haggerty. And there you have it. One of the most iconic Christmas films in the history of Christmas. It had a wonderful cast that all went their separate ways, but never took for granted the impact this film had on their lives and the lives of millions of fans around the world. Which is really nice because almost 40 years later, most of them reunited for the HBO Max sequel on HBO Max. A Christmas Story Christmas on HBO Max. And here at the JoBlo Movie Network, we do not recognize the other so-called sequel, the direct-to-video 2012 A Christmas Story 2. That movie was an abomination, a disgrace to Christmas. So nobody should give a fudge about what the fudge happened to all these fudging Christmas Story people, because they're doing just fine.
Adios, Bart! But if you do come back, you'll be pushing up daisies